The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and it's a wonderful day here in the Eifel Mountains in Germany. Welcome, everyone, in likely be a historic day here for RCI, our first ever GT2 competition race live from the Nordschleife. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Austin and, of course, Stewie behind the cameras. Austin, welcome in and welcome to the Green Hill.
I mean, thank you for having me back. And I mean, what a track! I say this every time we open a stream, but what a track! It's my first time actually seeing this track for myself in game, and it's crazy.
It really is. It's got a lot of turns. It's a very difficult track to honestly navigate in the best of times. Of course, qualifying very abbreviated. Cars will only get one lap as the KTM in front, I think, has hit the wall quite heavily. Callum Kerrigan, unfortunately, has to navigate that section of the racetrack. They do quite nicely before they get to the carousel. And it's one of those that's kind of illustrated my point. With such a long lap around this race course, one of those is all you can really afford.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those tracks as well. I mean, accidents are going to happen. I mean, it's just nature of the track. But you look at how close the barrier is to the actual racetrack itself. I mean, the track's built into the hillside. It's built onto like a series of cliffs. So I mean, they can't really extend the track any further than it already is. But what that does mean is it's a test of skill for the drivers.
Really is. It's going to be a test of will for the drivers as well. Folks out there, if we sound different, if things look a little different, if the audio's cutting in and out, we have had a plethora of technical gremlins, almost every single one of them completely out of our control. Discord not playing nice around the world, apparently, at this hour. That has led us to having to do some extreme measures to try and bring you the broadcast here today. All credit to the team here who have been troubleshooting the past just about 45 minutes to try and get a stream up here. Is one of those days, so we apologize for the sloppiness, if there is indeed any, that you can detect behind your screens. We are making do, certainly, what we got. We're basically working with Discord, but viewing the race from a separate platform, and one of those makeshift situations in and of itself. Austin, I bet you've never called a race quite like this.
No, no. For reference, the Kerrigan I can see on the screen at the moment, they're currently coming out of the Flans Garden, and like 3 frames later they'll be onto the back straight. It's there's a lot that I'm missing out on though. Going through the mini carousel now. Okay, halfway into the mini carousel, and now we're up to the corner just before the straight. So yeah, there's a lot that I'm missing out on, but I will try my best.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where it really tests your ad-lib ability as a broadcaster we're working with. And of course, this is no fault broadcasting or anything, things that you cannot outrun today. But it's here nonetheless. It's the first time, as I mentioned in the intro, that crews have been around here. We've seen a number of cars already invalidate, some of them even before they got off the Grand Prix track.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, it's gonna be a fun one. I mean, these cars, we've seen it before. They are a bit of a handful compared to the in terms of their understeer. And from what I've also researched a little bit on this track and what I do know on this version of it, I guess you could say. I mean, obviously it's in tons of other games as well, but this is kind of like the first time we've obviously seen it in ACC. And so the most recent laser scan, but apparently the curbs are not friendly around here either. So that's something the GT2 cars are gonna have to be a bit careful of.
If you're unfamiliar with the Nürburgring, the Nordschleife, or the combined layout, that's what we're on today. This is called the 24/8 circuit, or the combined GP circuit with the Mercedes-Benz Arena, and that's where we're at right now. 170 turns officially on this racetrack, 25.3 kilometers around, and if you are from a land of old school measurements, that's 15.7 miles around here. The quickest lap ever recorded by Daniel Kulowitz was a 8-minute, 8-second lap, almost dead, somewhat quite recently, just about a year ago in the Ferrari 296 GT3. These GT2s will not be running 8-minute laps around this joint. They just don't quite have the turnability. They'll get somewhat close though, because they are, of course, a mix of a GT4 and a GT3. Becky up at the front just now, outdone by the 48 Maserati, an 8:19.07. That's pretty good. Only about, what would you reckon? Only about 11 seconds off of a GT3 world record.
Yeah, I mean that's not bad, is it? I mean, we say that the GT4s are about 10 seconds a lap, give or take, slower than a GT3. So, I mean, do the math. I'm not entirely sure where that. I don't know what point I was trying to get on with that one, Jesse, but it does feel like there's a bit of a proportion ratio in going on there in terms of lap time. Rafael Kuhl coming in with an 8.3, so only about 16 seconds now off of that lap time. Oh, was it 16? No, it's closer to the lap time that you were just saying there, Jeff.
808, the GT3 world record, the 24-hour variant. That's what we're on here today. And there is several different variants. There's obviously, with the Grand Prix Striker, there's a couple of different ones you can have as well. There's the sprint circuit, of course, full circuit, and just the bottom part as well. Of course, with the Nordschleife, it's the same thing. This is the 24-hour variant, and there are other variants of this track that they run. Of course, the typical, the old VLN series that's been renamed in recent years. They typically don't actually run this except for the 24-hour race. They usually run the bit that cuts the Dunlop hairpin, the Schumacher S's, off of the circuit. So this is a real treat. This is the variant that I am currently aware of a run on. So it's a treat for us because you get a little bit of the Grand Prix, get a whole lot of the green hell. But you don't know why it's called the green hell. I mean, just look around. There's nothing but trees and grass. Some Armco to run into, and run into it they may. Very few cars to this point, Austin, have been able to put in legitimate lap time. Only 7 of the cars have run a valid time. We talked about invalidation earlier. Most of the field has invalidated by the looks of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's so many corners. Like, there's a corner coming up, actually, just up this hill. If you run a little bit wide, it's one of the few parts of the track where there is actually a little bit of exit runoff, and it's so easy to run into it, but it will be enough to invalidate the lap, and that's just one spot of how many corners was this track again, Jesse? Was it 112? Something close to that? At least I believe this version is over 100 corners, if I remember correctly, but yeah, no, it just gives so much of an opportunity to just to kind of hang it a little bit wide, run some run rails into the grass, and just at that point in time, you're just lucky to make it round.
170 corners officially on the 24-hour variant of the course. I believe the short, just the Nordschleife itself, has around 150. So combined version with all the extra bells and whistles, 170 corners that you have to traverse. The good news is no inclement weather expected here. You always can have that in the Eifel. We are not going to, or at least don't believe we're going to experience that today. I remember one year they expected no bad weather at all, and then there was a hailstorm in the middle of the Nürburgring 24-hour race. So anything's possible, but today our forecasters has told us it's going to be bright sunshine, it's going to be quite warm, but no bad weather to speak of.
Yeah, but Jesse, don't forget, at least in real life, I don't know how the game works, but in real life, the track is so big that you will get parts. If it's raining, like, it's not necessarily raining or hailstorming or whatever on the whole track. Usually when it rains on part of the track, and then the teams have to kind of like hazard a guess as to whether or not it's best to use dry or wet tires, just based on the sections that are potentially flooded. It's actually a really interesting, the seismics planning for the weather, really, really interesting, but I'm not entirely sure how the game handles that.
Yeah, it is quite interesting that that you point that out, Austin, because I'm not entirely sure that this has progressive weather. Certainly felt like on different instances, wet weather races, that there was one part of the track, not necessarily here, obviously, but in general, one part of the track was wetter than others. But you never know if that's truly placebo effect. I know iRacing, where we were live with yesterday, that definitely has that mechanic. It can a rain cell can clip particular part of the racetrack can be absolutely flooded that section and be completely dry in the other. Here, I don't know if that's necessarily possible. I would say if somebody driven the Nordschleife in ACC, perhaps in bad weather, could tell us if that is something I've speculated on quite a bunch. I don't a definitive answer. 3.5 minutes left to qualifying. Raphael Huell taking the top spot in the 21 KTM. An 8:16.385. They set that time some time ago. They out there still trying to get a lap on the board. There's 8 cars that have set a valid time. Now, we don't ever talk about this because it's never really happened before. But where you are in the running order, regardless if you've set a valid lap or not, that is where you will start the race. You see Mike Jones there, Cave Bear 714 Audi. If nobody else were to set a time, well, they would end up in 11th place. But actually, many cars are setting times, including Andy Boardman. He's come across the line to set an 8:13.967.
Yeah, I mean, 8:13. That's kind of crazy. You know, when you consider like you know, the times that we're just kind of reading off earlier. Verstappen still have. I remember with Raphael Huell at the time, and I was kind of impressed. But yeah, Daly, Verstappen, and Boardman going quicker in that time period as well, and by a good margin, by 2 seconds, which means that we're only, God, doing the maths, about what, 6 seconds or so, 6 or 7 seconds behind the real life record that you called out earlier. So these are GT2s. They're doing all right.
Nordschleife does end up having a lot of good long straights, but this is not one of them as Martin Lawrence goes off onto the road and bounces into the wall in one of the more tough parts of the racetrack, and a hard header into the wall, and you're just lucky it's a simulator and not a real thing. But these wheels make it very dangerous to the hands and fingers as well. Oh, Martin Lawrence is all right. That was a wild ride. Just went a little bit too wide, trying to cut it back to the left there. Unable to do that. Ends up scraping the Armco and head on. Nothing they can do into the adjacent side of the racetrack's Armco. Huge crash there. That will take them out of qualifying, certainly. Boardman with the mark to beat, that 9. Christoph Estrepa comes in P2, half a second off of the pace. Now, normally we would say that's a decent enough gap, and that's a huge gap for Boardman, but considering the 8-minute plus lap time, that's an absolute skill gap between Boardman and Verstappen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, usually we're used to sort of seeing like the top 5 cars all within like a second of each other, but yeah, you gotta take into account like the kind of consistency scale, I guess. And with the track being so vast, you know, half a second in it is essentially nothing. You know, half a second over the course of a race lap. If this were Formula One, they'd still be within DRS range at the end of an 8-minute lap. So that's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Is qualifying nearly coming to an end? It's going to be an abbreviated finish here to qualifying, and I fear that not all of the laps that are currently being run will be counted due to the length of the circuit. It's going to be a problem if they did not get a quick enough lap out. And Norris comes around and ends up promoting themselves for they're up behind the top 5 again. Though admittedly, I think a lot of the drivers realize of the abbreviated in-timer here today, because there's not very many out there, and there's a couple of cars that are on their way to the Dottinger, and they will almost certainly still make it. No, the wait time is correct. It's 2-something minutes into quali for the cars to get through. Last car in line, that 714, I've been told that some of the cars that appear to be on an invalid lap aren't actually. I can tell you is Uriditas Partes in the Alpha SimSport 195. They are on a valid lap, and they will likely be the last one to set representative time. Boardman out in front of Estrepa, Huell, Daly, Norris, Rybecki, Tigris, Browers, Martins, and Richard Whittle, the top 10 currently, with Browers the quickest silver car. 2 different classes here in GT2, Pro and Silver. It's Browers in front of Kerrigan and Svinkunas, the top 3 in the silver class. Here comes Partes.
Put that in crossing the line first, get P16 plus 14.4 seconds behind Boardman, but that is going to put them looks of things, but at this point in time, kind of like towards the midfield of their class. So that's what we provisionally was for fifth in class. So no, again, not terrible, but again at the same time, there's a lot of pressure, especially in qualifying around here, because you only get, was it 15 minutes of qualifying, not no, not a lot of chance to actually not actually to be able to actually put a time in. So if you make a mistake in your out laps or your banking laps or your first laps, then that's kind of it for the session.
Think about this, only 3 sectors here on this circuit, as big as it is. So here is how it went down. Boardman's Maserati on pole, the quickest first and second sector, but in sector number 3, it was Christoph Strepa who was actually the quickest through the Flansgarten and the Dangerhöhe all the way back around to the start finish line. So as close as that was, half of a second is all there was in it, and that just shows you, I mean, they were pretty close all the way around to get to that time. Confirming Brower's the pole sitter in the silver class, and do bear in mind, championship points are separated by the two classes. Talking about that championship, have a look at the points. Starting off with the silver field first, Kevin Boss not in action here today. Was told that they wouldn't be, and they should be back in 1 week's time. They lead the championship using their drop round here, 130 championship points. Peter Varga right behind them with 107. Mike Jones in third place with 116. Fabian Hundehage has 97 in fourth. Guar Fox rounds out your top 5 with 89. Critic in sixth place with 87. Teixeira has 84. Keith Whittle on 81. Callum Kerrigan on 73. And Luis Villas Moss round out your top 10, 71. Outside the top 10, Ibiza Racer has 65 points. Euryditus has 48. Les Stevenson on 38 championship points. In Browers on 37 is going to now, thanks to that pole position. Alexander has 34. Bibby, Sven Kunis, and Bubbins, or actually just Bibby and Sven Kunis, 5 in the championship, have no points. Everybody else with a dash tired from the series. Moving on to the pro field, Jordan Daly leading them around with Christoph Strepa in tow. The two sometimes teammates are frenemies. The two championship tied at the top. Right behind them, Grit at the 123 championship points in front of Eric Jackson on 97. Ed Edwards has 92 in fifth place. Boardman on 90 in sixth. Huel has 88 in seventh. Butcher Rybecki in eighth place with 85. Imoplata has 81. Miguel Martins rounds out your top 10, 75. Inside the top 10, Robbie Kelly on 65, Richard Withel on 59, Dinek Kalmari is 52, Vigorous on 50, Parker Olson has 46, Norris has 42, Martin Lawrence has joined today, championship point, but is still alive. I repeat, Dash has retired from the series. You know, Austin, it's actually sort of scary how close the championship points have been thus far, considering this is the fourth round of the series. This is not the kind of racetrack you want to put your championship lead on the line for.
You know what? No, I'm gonna go out on a whim here, Jesse, and I'm gonna disagree with you. Very rarely does this happen. Um, on the sense of this track's one of those that obviously there's the big iRacing 24 hours. A lot of the drivers here will also do as well. It's a track that's very familiar. It's a track a lot of these drivers put a lot of time into, and as long as you treat it with some kind of respect, well, like a lot of racetracks already in this game, actually it just becomes I don't want to say it just becomes another trap because it doesn't, but it becomes kind of more routine, just a little bit more involved. I don't think the drivers here that are confident aren't scared of this track. Not really, I think it's a good place to kind of get some more kind of experience down on the board, get some more points down, and and if you're confident in defending on it, go for it.
I think you might have a point, actually. It is an opportunity for drivers that are looking to make a move to sort of get in the that move. If they are a bit more patient, a bit more race starts and let everybody else have their own incidents or make their own. This is a day that, yes, it is very dangerous. The way that you put it, it is an opportunity to gain additional points on the folly of other drivers not being heads up, not quite paying attention, or being perhaps a bit too aggressive. I think if you are third, fourth, fifth in the championship in either silver or pro, day is a great day for those drivers if they just decide or get lucky enough too. You can go about it many different ways. You can calm and crack on, or you can actually be aggressive. And maybe Nordschleife is your track. The one tracks, the newest track to ACC. Maybe an AC fan, or maybe run this in iRacing or a different sim time. Now it's in ACC. You might have a leg up. 170 corners. That is a lot to memorize. Most racetracks have 22 or less corners. A lot easier to memorize. If you know this place more than anybody else, be at a marked advantage as well.
That's literally it. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And I mean, it's one of those tracks. It's always good to have that feather in the cap. You know, it just down to how iconic it is. I mean, it's one of those tracks that I feel like everyone should aim to sort of yeah, anyone who's decently into what it is that we do. You know, it's one of those tracks. It's like Spa or Silverstone or even Monaco. Like it's one of those tracks. You know, you put the extra time into learning. And what I found about the Nordschleife from personal experience is that really easy to drive it quickly. As soon as you start memorizing the layout and you have the layout memorized, but to drive it fast, that extra step up, that's where it gets really difficult. That's really what separates this track from others.
Just waiting for the track to reset and the put on the grid. The starting procedure here at Life a bit different than at other. So not missing any racing action as we go to the flyby standby cameras as cars are doing getting in and up appropriately. Track, of course, completely different than what anybody would be used to in the game. And in fact, why wouldn't it be? It's one of the more unique tracks in the world. Not the longest. I have been corrected about that before. Erroneously referred to this track in the is not. Is certainly. I've just thought of something, Austin.
Go on.
Stewie's our broadcaster, right? Stewie's German. He is going to roll his eyes and grit his teeth for the entirety of this race as I attempt to pronounce some of these corner names here at the Nordschleife.
This is a very good point. I think seriously, be glad that the broadcast does actually eventually end. Eventually.
I'm going to preemptively apologize to not only Stewie, broadcast, to I am. Well, technically I am, but I'm not German, not from Germany. I will butcher some of these names. I do apologize. I have raced here myself for the part of 20 some years. You know what the quarter names sound like? That doesn't mean I'm going to nail the dialect or what. I mean,
Jesse, I've got one for you. I've got one.
go on.
Do you know the German corner name for the corner out of Arenberg?
Go ahead.
No, no, I want to hear you pronounce it, Jesse. I want to hear you pronounce it right here on stream.
Uh,
The English translation is Foxhole, but what's the German?
where is the circuit?
So you come through the Flugplatz, and you've got the double kind of you got that kind of lift off kind of left hand kink. You go into Arenberg, which is kind of like a long right hander. Then you go down the hill and up to the compression. Foxhole is the bit that goes down the hill. But
Oh,
translated into
okay. Okay. I've seen what you've trying to do. You're not going to trick me into that today. I've seen it. No, it's not happening. I thought
Fush,
about it.
I believe
I,
it's
I,
Fushra, but still, we can
I
probably correct me. Fushra, I'm not entirely certain how to pronounce it, but it's about that. I see. It's such a huge track. I'm sure sure the audience can appreciate that much. But yeah, memorizing corner names A lot of it's also kind of like sections, well, like kind of like section names, quite interesting. Then obviously there's the kind of like more affectionately given names, from like I know Jimmy Broadbent has sections as well. How I believe where he calls Hatzenbach isn't actually Hatzenbach. Hatzenbach happens a few corners after he calls Hatzenbach. But obviously the community has its own kind of like names for some of the corners as well. It's a much loved track.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting race for sure. Just if you just joined us now, we are getting everything ready to go racing here today. And it's been a fraud affair just to get to this point for us. Not necessarily in ACC, but to toward having their issues. Um, Quite weirdly, I'm being told that my audio is particularly worse in comparison to you, Austin. Austin, have you noticed anything out of the ordinary?
No, no, you sound fine at least here with the box with me, but not entirely certain on the stream. So if anyone is out there, that might be a that might be a good chance to tell us about Jesse.
Well, there you go. Again, we said this when we first came on, but if there is audio issues, we do very much apologize. There's not a whole lot we can do about it today. It's this or don't stream, and there's no way we were going to miss the Nordschleife. There's not going to happen. I'm quite curious what we're going to see. Of course, Austin, these cars, not GT3s, these are GT2s. They have more simplistic aerodynamics, but they actually have quite a bit more power, if you will, or speed down the straight, and that's going to come in handy here at the Nordschleife. What are your predictions for this race in a car that maybe doesn't handle quite as well as a GT3, but has more speed than one?
I think I think it's going to be a bit of a cluster truck, honestly. We've seen, I mean, up at the top of the field, we've got the likes of Raphael Hill, Boardman, Verstappen. And we've seen them deal with traffic before, but at the same time, because the time for the race hasn't changed, but the track is so long, we're going to see significantly less laps than we normally do. But what it does mean is that people are going to be making their own mistakes to the point where I don't think it'll be too long until we start seeing lapped cars and managing traffic on a track where, for the most part, there's only one line through it's just to actually kind of complete the circuit. There's very little chance to actually kind of overtake a car that you're actually racing, let alone a car that you're trying to lap. I think that's going to make things very interesting. As far as predictions go, it's kind of impossible to predict. I don't think you can really do that, given there's so many factors and influences that just happen naturally at the Nordschleife. It's why it's a fun circuit. I think if it was like anything else and you could predict it, it would take some of the magic away. So I think just kind of rolling with it's going to be the strat for today.
Well, I think that's wise, and I will not make a specific prediction, but I will say, after seeing some practice this week and watching some public races past couple of weeks around here, I'm going to make a prediction of sorts. And quite simply, if one of the cars, and folks at home, you can take this to the bank, if one of the cars in the front of this field has an incident, the majority of the field will then be involved in said incident.
That is that's true, to be fair.
There's just, I mean, it kind of builds off of your point because there's nowhere to go. Once you get off the Grand Prix Strecke, there's almost nowhere to go. There's a couple of places where you could potentially make an overtake or have a go, but the majority of the time, and something difficult for ACC drivers to wrap their brain around, is you have to wait. You genuinely have to wait. Once you, especially, you get to Kallenhad or any point beyond that, all the way through the carousel and the Echtbach, Whipperman, all those corners, there's no way to make a pass unless somebody's in the wall or completely off of the racetrack.
Yeah, it's basically the S's of Bathurst, but everywhere. Again, just keeping an eye out for flags, especially if you're coming around, any of the many, many blind corners around here. Keeping an eye out for flags, keeping your wits about you, and that's basically keeping yourself out of trouble, is what's going to help you gain places if you didn't have such a great quality or if you're starting towards the back of the grid. But again, it's one of the few tracks, that that qualifying ultimately doesn't mean too much if you can master just kind of keeping yourself out of trouble.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to take care of yourself, and that's why I mentioned earlier that I think if you're a driver that's still in this title hunt, but it quite up at the sharp end of it, today could be a great day for you. Let other people make the mistakes, and you pick your way through it. It could be the day that you looking for. Just looking around the racetrack here at some of the sites that you will see, very common corners, very popular race destination. Some people even make it their yearly vacation to come and see the 24-hour here at the Nürburgring. And why wouldn't you? I mean, it's just such a massive scale racetrack that encircles multiple towns. What else can you possibly say?
That's it. I mean, that's a really good point, Jesse, because the Nordschleife really is just a toll road, really. And it was purpose built to be a racetrack, yes, but eventually, I mean, looking at the camera shots here, it really is just a ring around the town of Nuremberg. There's a castle in there and everything. In fact, on the back straight as you're driving down, you can actually see the castle like in the distance. So yeah, I think Siri has it up now. I think that is the town itself. Um, yeah, it's crazy, and when the track's not being used for competition, I believe it's open for the days what they call Touristenfahrten, which is basically as it sounds. It's tourists. They'll bring. It's where you see like mini buses going around and coaches and buses, even trucks occasionally. You pay, I think it's something like 20 to 45 euros, and you get a lap around the Nordschleife. So it is it's really cool that they basically open this for a big glorified track day when it's not being used for competition. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it is a public toll road. In fact, a lot of insurance companies will actually have a clause saying if you take your car on the Nurburgring, it's completely invalid, and it will name the Nurburgring by name. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's very cool experience. Still getting the cars on the grid. We're being told that this is going to be a full formation lap, and they were
Oh
trying to
dear.
avoid doing a full formation lap, but that appears to be the case. A couple of cars have since vacated said grid, going a little bit over schedule. We'll see if they're going to try and rectify that or if they are going to do the full formation lap. It's an 8-minute lap under steam. It would be quite a bit longer than that. So try to rectify that. I've seen this issue come up before, not in RCI, but elsewhere. This is again a problem with the Nordschleife. Nobody really wants to do a full formation lap. Take what reckon 15 minutes or so. I
I mean, how long is a formation lap in comparison to other? I mean, let's take Paul Ricard for example. Paul Ricard's quite a long circuit, especially with the back straight. I'm not sure how long a formation lap takes around there, but yeah, no, I'd say I'd hazard a guess to say it's between like the 18 and 20 minute kind of mark, 20 to 25 minute. It would not surprise me at all one bit. Yeah, it would not be a fun experience.
Mike Jones actually earlier answered a question that you and I both had that no intermittent weather in ACC. It's either raining or isn't. So don't get the Gran Turismo iRacing style of one side of the circuit can be absolutely drenched and the other side is dry. That would be a cool feature to have here. Actually, not how ACC works. So if it's raining on the pit lane, no, all the way at the other end Whipperman. So there you have it. Thank you, Mike Jones, for the info. Out of everyone, I expected Mike to know that, and he did.
There we go. But then again, if someone from Kunos is watching this, please, that'd be so cool around here. Like,
Yeah,
that'd
you
be
say
so
that, Austin,
cool.
until you say stuff like that until you have to drive around this circuit on dry tires. You get all the way back to Bergwerk, and then all of a sudden, the bottom falls out of the cloud, and you make it to right around Carousel, and you have to call for a tow.
I mean, I'll complain about the situation when it happens.
I like the spirit, like that. It is a some drivers revel in that. Of course, no real weather issues today. A lot of drivers revel in that opportunity to go out there, and it happens in the real 24-hour well, where it'll be raining on the backside of the circuit, a bright sunshine on the pit lane, and it becomes an act of tiptoeing around the racetrack a little bit until you get out of the torrential downpour. Because when you're 8 kilometers, 8 to 12 kilometers away from pit lane, you have two options. You can pull over, which I believe we have seen before, cars pulling over, or cars unable to get up hills in certain cases, or you try to just drive around the track, which is difficult than you ever imagine. Dry tire, and you have the opposite of that, right? Wet tires on a dry track. That's equally as bad of a decision. But I mean, what are you going to do?
That's it. That's literally it. I mean, just imagine how much marbling there would be on the track after that. That soft of a tire compound. Imagine how hot those tires are going to get if you're trying to account for just a small portion of wet circuit by jumping the gun and switching to wet tires early. And then even worse, at that point in time, the rain clears up before it spreads to the entire circuit. So I'm fairly certain that's happened before as well.
Yes, indeed. We are back live here at the Nürburgring. Are on the Dottinger actually at the very end of it, the top of the hill, and we have sorted it out. This will not be a full pace lap. I think some of the cars have reconnected that were previously not so down with that. We have committed an additional 10 or so minutes from schedule, and we will get this race. So there's no official pace lap here. There will only be a run up to the flag.
In a way, that's kind of for the best, though, isn't it? That just means that we're not having to sit through 20 minutes of formation lap.
Well, that's and happy to have it indeed. Mike Jones had an additional bit of information. He's driving in this race, and when I say driving, I mean he's sitting on the grid. He's had some time to think about it. He's also laid the tidbit that the percentage of cars on a particular part of the racetrack is irrelevant. Is only the amount of cars actually on the track that change the length and duration. CC tidbit for you there as well. Now, we've got the cars on the grid, two different classes of GT2, Pro and Silver. We've got some Silver, the high end, are intermingled with the Pro cars, and they will have to dispatch each other. That only indicates the problems here at a race. This, my question to Austin now becomes, if I'm one of the top 2 or 3 Silver cars and I'm in amongst the Pro field, how do I feel about that? What do I do considering passing opportunities are limited? I a bit hurried in my approach, or and because I'm Silver, am I sort of left to my own devices?
Honestly, I don't think you can rush anything around here. I think that you have to approach any kind of racing around here with a sense of patience. You have to kind of bide your time. I mean, end of the day, the race is still an hour long, but the track, it is on the more difficult end of the scale, but it's a track like Bathurst, where Bathurst is a relatively kind of 2 minute. It's about a 2 minute lap, but at the same time, you got the middle section. You just kind of have to approach with a little bit of respect, and I mean, the whole track here you have to approach with quite a bit of respect. Speaking, there's the castle I was talking about earlier, it's just in the kind of middle right of your screen. But yeah, no, I don't think you rush anything around here, Jesse. I think that you kind of have to kind of keep your wits about you and just hope that the guys ahead of you get impatient and let other people make the aggressive moves and just kind of make up on those gains as you said earlier.
Castle in the background, not realistic at all. Kunos, because there's no scaffolding around. Recently watched it. Well, I would say recently. It's been like that 5 or 6 part of walls there. I know it in modern context of having scaffolding all around it as they're doing their diligent and meticulous repair work. Uh, None of that in the game, which is kind of interesting to see that they put it in its natural state. Just a great beacon. It almost fills you with hope as you clear the bigger part of the forest and come back on the Dottinger, and you can see castle come up, and I don't know. It's just one of those things. We equate that in a 24-hour race to when the sun comes up, it reinvigorates you a little bit. Seeing the castle is almost like, okay, I survived another lap.
That's it. That's it. It's kind of just that kind of, as you said, like that beacon, that landmark, and it just adds a little bit of character to the racetrack. I think without the castle, it would feel very, very different. I think Kudos were right to not put the scaffolding around it. It's kind of unrealistic as that might seem, because the scaffolding isn't going to be forever. But I mean, let's hope at least, right?
Austin, I can tell you've never been to New York City, but we are moments away. That was a joke. Do you want to know why that's funny, Austin?
I'd like to know why that's funny.
In New York, almost every building, that's a complete fabrication, but a lot of buildings in New York have scaffolding around them because the outsides of the buildings are not up to code. The law in New York State says that as long as the scaffolding is actually there, that implies work is being done, meaning that there is no deadline for the buildings to be upgraded. That is why so many buildings in New York have scaffolding around them. Making
Yeah,
a New York joke.
that is it's crazy, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, that does make sense. But I mean,
Well, that was not a ringing in, sort of invitation to New York, was it? Really? I don't think I'm being hired on the tourist board.
I mean, I'm canceling flights as we speak.
Well, we are finally about to get going. For all of you patient folks in chat that have waited with us, we appreciate that. This is our first real race at the Nordschleife, and some teething issues have all but been solved, and we're ready to go racing. Boardman and Verstappen on the front row, Huell and Daly, Norris and Rybecki the next row, as well as we get ready to go green on the 24-hour circuit, waiting, and waiting. It's so painful down this huge front straightaway. And there they go, release, the green flag waving, and it's an excellent start for Boardman. Perhaps not so for Verstappen. Verstappen now pulling to the right there. Jordan Daly has come all the way from fourth to challenge for P2. He's going to have to do it around the outside, 3 wide into turn number 1. A couple of little minor bumper cars, but they just about get it all together through the kink, and they will continue 2 by 2 for many rows here, and that goes all the way up to Daly and Verstappen. Daly still pressuring Verstappen. Verstappen, of course, in the orange car. Daly in the blue car. A little bit of a slide there from Daly. That's going to give an opportunity back to Verstappen.
That's some early aggression there by Daly. Amazing start off the line. Manages to squeeze it between themselves and Verstappen. Takes the position, but now look at the gap between themselves and Bobbin. That's given Bobbin a bit of an early advantage that they can try to run with. Obviously, our pole sitter as well did set the fastest time by half a second in qualifying. Has the opportunity to have the race pace to kind of run away with this, but we'll have to see how that Maserati can handle having so much fuel on board, and obviously managing the tyres. Speaking of tyres, the short formation, that means these tyres are going to be colder than they'd usually be at the end of a formation lap as well, so that might slow or impede some of the drivers going on to the Nordschleife itself. Florian Brauer's chasing down the likes of... What was that?
Well, that was Raphael Huell, and I don't know if they got touched or not, but they shot off the racetrack, and that looked very unnatural.
Yeah, we've got a race replay here, courtesy of Stewie, and it's Rybecki. Yeah, a little bit of a tap down inside. Rybecki. Oh no, it was Rybecki that. No, it was Raphael Huell that went off, but Rybecki got away with it. But sent Raphael Huell. Small touch, all things considered, but things sometimes just strange things when contact occurs, and that's the result sometimes.
Brower still leading in the silver class. No change there. There were a couple of squabbles in the middle of the pack. Serious, of course, was Huell and Rybecki. Other than that, I think they just about got away with it, despite the fact that they were 2 by 2, far longer than I could have ever imagined them being, and they got away with it for the most part. And now single file on the Nordschleife proper, and this is where the real racing begins. Whittle gets a slow exit there, and here comes Miguel Martins, one of the few places you get side by side, and he's going to do it and just about get clear before they go through. Oh my goodness, that was as close as you like.
Yeah, and that's Whittle not happy at all. Flash of the lights, and we should realize just how rapid these AMGs are in a straight line. Look at this. That's Martin Lawrence coming up behind coming up behind Whittle, and yeah, it just can't find a way around. Again, we're talking about this earlier. There's only really one line around a lot of this racetrack, and coming around that's a really high speed left-hander as we come down the foxhole, just past Ironburg. But there's only really one line through there, and that lift off and the lack of downforce does make a difference. That's Raphael Huel again caught up. I believe that's with that's Jackson coming up the compression now. But a little bit of contact there. Both drivers get away with it, but no one into the wall.
Oh,
But speaking of into the wall, who's that on the side?
I think that's the 48 or 49 car. It is Norris. Norris, who qualified inside the top 5, is off of the racetrack and just gets it wrong. We
Oh,
saw a similar incident with Martin Lawrence in qualifying, and unfortunately for Norris, that happened in the race, and now we're going to wait for the entire line of cars to go by to flip it back around. That is the loneliest feeling, but doing the right thing, though, was Norris joining the racetrack, but that car severely damaged. We'll have to make repairs. You would have to think a long way back to the pit lane from there, some 15 plus kilometers back to the line. Jordan Daly has taken P2 from Nordschleife and has run down Andy Boardman. This fight is legendary. Boardman versus Daly. This is almost day one RCI stuff between these two. And Aaron Jackson. Aaron Jackson's crashed the Audi liveried Audi. And no, I didn't misspoke there. That was absolutely the case. Oh, and he gets down to the inside, hops the curb. Yes, indeed, Raphael Huel involved, and I think that was Mike Jones who came in there, and that was sort of what we were talking about, where if an accident happens in front of you, you're at the whim of where it ends up. Mike Jones also involved there, a couple of incidents. Now, I am surprised, Austin, that they're this side by side this early on. They are pulling no punches.
no, not at all. And I mean, I'm not surprised that this is many incidents early on. We did say this is going to be a race of attrition, but you've got a point in that. We're only 5 or 6 minutes into this race altogether, so it's a bit hectic. Jordan Daly, Andy Bodman really started to squabble at the front there. Bodman's advantage completely eaten into by Daly. Daly just kind of getting on with it. Verstappen still kind of in the background, still not a threat at the moment. He's ready to capitalize on any of the mistakes that are being made. But I mean, just look at the pace that these guys are going through. There's so much confidence through the carousel there, but at the same time, we're getting into what's often described as the best piece of racetrack in the world. But again, you said this earlier. This part of the track, it has one line. Even if Daly catches up, even if Daly's on Bodman's gearbox, there's no way around. They're going to have to be patient and try to, at this point in time, I'm thinking about making a move onto the straight if I can kind of keep the pace up, but that means getting a good exit from that kind of like on that final kind of corner before the straight and just trying to pull into the slip, but I don't know if that's going to be enough, Jesse.
I don't know if it will be. I think Martin Lawrence is making a look, looking up the inside there. He thought about it, and oh, it's going to be a car off of the racing surface. Is that Richard Whittle? It is, for the Whittle's Wizards KTM team. And was that a force off, or was that contact? I don't know if that was just a slide. That's such a horrible angle, not reporting contact for Richard Whittle. That car got sideways all by itself, according to our telemetry. And now the 957 has to suffer the same fate as Norris did earlier, just waiting for the entire line of cars to come through. They will eventually join. Shiloh's joined us in chat, says some of the best commentary I've ever seen in the community. That's very nice of you, Shiloh. We appreciate those remarks there, and welcome in. If you're new to the channel, we enjoy having you here, and you've joined us at a rather auspicious time to race the Nordschleife. Mike Jones has spun again, Austin.
I just want to echo you there, Jesse. Just say a massive thank you. That genuinely does mean a lot. Mike Jones sending it rammed in a loop in that R8 there, the 714 R8, and it's the worst feeling, Jesse. You said it before. It's lonely. It's heartbreaking in a way, because you just kind of just sit there, sort of just bathing in your own kind of in your own mistake. knowing that, you know, you've got to do the right thing, wait for everyone to pass, and then you finally flip the car around and get on your way again and try to make up that lost ground. Speaking of make up lost ground, Verstappen still only 1.6 seconds behind, still a threat to the top two drivers right now, coming up to complete the first lap of the Nordschleife. Got heavy braking zone, and side by side you got Martins and that's Martins and Tigrin. Martins Tigers. These two AMGs. You can't trust the scoreboard on the left hand side of your screen, guys. That will update as each and every lap when the cars cross the line. However, this is Martin Lawrence and I believe Tigers as well. It is, and they're going side by side down the back straight. But I don't think the positions had changed.
No, of course, with most tracks you can follow on the left-hand side of the screen quite easily, but if you've ever watched the N24, Marker Olsen, one of the TIG gang cars, has found themselves in the wall, and we'll see exactly how that happened. They were through the gotten all fine, and oh my goodness, they just lost it, I suspect, too far to the left, and they hit the worst part of the tire pack right there. Luckily for them, though, as lucky as it can be for a car that had a massive incident like that, like the 74 TIG gang car did, they ended up right where pit lane was, so they did not have to drive around wounded. So weirdly enough, they have a marked advantage versus some of the other cars incidents on lap one, like Mike Jones, like Raphael Huell, like Norris, who have had to limp their cars around. You know who's not limping around here? Jordan Daly. I thought he may have been able take a shot down the Danger. He did not, and I think caught him, but he's going to race him quite calm, quite smooth here. They're dropping Verstappen behind. Not really a big issue. No reason to force it if it's not on.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, at the end of the day, we're already 10 minutes into an hour-long race. So, you know, again, respect the track, respect the cars around you, and just kind of keep up the pace. And that's exactly what Daly is doing. And, you know, maybe an opportunity will present itself. It is possible to overtake on certain parts of the ring itself, but you just kind of have to sort of plan for it. You have to plan ahead. You have to think ahead. You kind of have to line up your moves and make sure that you kind of nail all of your marks and get everything you need to get right. As Bauer's chasing down Rybecki 4P4, just one step off of the podium. Verstappen pulling away just a little bit, kind of falling behind Daly just a little bit more. But I think Boardman right now is setting the pace for the top 4 or 5 cars in this race.
Well, Florian Brauers might drive for slow-mo racing, but there's nothing slow about his racing. Is now chopping into the pro field up inside the top 5 overall. A couple of cars in front of him, of course, had their issues early on, but that's not to take away from Brauer's prowess. He qualified P-way, still up there, and he's trying to take it to it. We talked about it, Austin. I asked you, how do you play this silver car amongst pros? Said not any different than you normally would. They're just race cars, they're just drivers, and you're better on a given day. I agree with you. Why not go up there and get you some? A couple of cars several seconds from him. Callum Kerrigan, who's in P2. Hundehage is third in that class now after the lap 1 dust is set.
That's just it. Olsen, we saw him going to the wall earlier. That's a stop go 30 penalty that's just come up. And there's a contact coming up the fluid pass there between Partes, Varga, and no, that's a Audi in front. So just to kind of correct myself, I'm not entirely certain who that is, but that was a little bit of contact at the fluid pass. So a couple of stop go 30s actually. Norris McSquirter in the 48 Maserati, also a stop go 30 penalty. Olsen with the stop go 30 as well. And I have a feeling those are the 2 cars are pitted, so I think that might be speeding in the pit lane.
Right, you are. The worst part is, too, you picked early. I'd already forgotten about this. Oh, Denek Kalmari, one of the other TIG gang cars. Oh, and was that by themselves or contact? And it looks like it might have been contact, and Kalmari's car backwards on the track.
Oh, that was ambitious.
I'm going to give Denek the benefit of the doubt that looked a lot worse on our camera than it actually was, because that did not look particularly great, but I'm willing to believe that was just a trick of the camera. Denek was not attempting to join in the middle of traffic like that. So a little bit of contact, a little bit of a spin there, but other than that,
Jesse,
at least no additional damage done.
Jesse, I was not in the car and I need a change of it. I'm not going to lie. That looked a lot closer than, as you say, than it probably was. But at the same time, that was Oh man, we've seen some rejoins. That's Mike Jones in the wall, and the Audi once again facing the wrong way, coming down into Fouchra. But I mean, at least they're kind of like, at least yes, the car spun, but it came up pointing in the correct direction. So they're back on the way. Didn't lose too much time in
Oh,
that.
that
So,
steering.
but
Oh,
yeah, that is also damage, and I'm gonna hazard the guess that yes, we have a mandatory stop, but we also have a pit window as well. So every time for the cars that have stopped this early on, you know, obviously that kind of comes
this
with
is
the penalty
dangerous.
of having to stop again side by side with Lawrence and Tigris. Okay, no, that makes sense. Tigris, the name and the livery of the car. No, that makes a lot of sense. Lawrence making it work though, coming up the hill towards the run to the corner. In fact, no, Bravery corner.
Yeah, it definitely is, and they're trying to make it work through there, and they do. Martin Lawrence up into P6, nearly running
Oh,
out of room on the racetrack there. I wonder how, for
that's how
everyone we
laps
catch
getting
on
validated.
film, yeah, for everyone we catch on film, I wonder how many of those we don't see. The RCI sports team, the in-house team is the 171. Other spots, there's certainly a lot of speed. Martin's.
No, that's just it. And I mean, we've seen it before. Early in the race, you know, we saw the cars come towards Hamburg. Really, really fast section. We've seen how fast this Mercedes is in a straight line. We've seen it countless times in the GT2 Championship. The Mercedes is strong in a straight line. So, I mean, if only there was a part of the track that had a huge straight line that could benefit Lawrence at this point. Oh wait, it is. And it's not actually that far away from where they're at the moment. So that might be a really good opportunity for Lawrence to try and sneak away that P5 position. And again, at the end of the day, they're still only like what? They're still only a second or so away from Rybecki. So podium could actually be on for Lawrence here, potentially.
Very much could be. It's a long race, and you don't know what's going to happen when the tires start to wear out, what the pit cycle's going to do. Shout out to Shiloh, who's just done a €5 super chat over on YouTube. Thank you very much. That's super generous and completely not necessary, but we definitely appreciate that, Shiloh. And on top of that, of course, any donations given to the RCI team channel goes right back into hosting servers. Of course, not free, but we foot the bill, and we appreciate whenever you do subscribe, of course, chat, things like that, of course, because that goes right back into hosting more races for all of you here. So not only do we thank you, the entire community thanks you for your support.
That's one of the things I love about here at RCI, and it's one of the reasons I kind of became a commentator here in the first place, or at least applied to try my hand for it all those. I mean, God, it's been years ago now, Jesse, when I first kind of got first messaged you guys. But yeah, no, the community has always been one of the best things about RCI, and you know, anything to kind of help it out, LT, is appreciated to no end. So thank you.
Absolutely. Things still quite close together. And in fact, we've had a few singles, most of them single car incidents, a couple of
Oh,
them not so much. Jordan
oh,
Daly was a
Daly,
half a second quicker on the straight the last
rocket
time
ship.
through, and he showed it again. That's right. The Just Gamers 197 Audi has absolutely exploded into the lead here. Boardman's Maserati looked like it was going in slow motion. Jordan Daly to the point of the race. Martin Lawrence has gotten inside the top five, has left Tigris, and now Browers, the silver leader, into their dust as the RCI Esports car is also trending in the right way. The easiest place to make an overtake on this course is in the pit lane. The second easiest place, Dangerhoy, you'd have to say.
Yeah, no, that was crazy. Daly had such an overspeed there on Boardman. That was I got quite excited, and that's Lawrence again. As we said, I knew Lawrence would make up the space on Browse. I mean, that Mercedes, it's not even a driver skill thing at that point. That Mercedes is so fast in a straight line. But they've also made the move on Rybecki as well, going down into the first
Oh,
corner.
big
That's
crash!
huge. That was a KTM off. So this is Partez coming down the back straight now, going down to starting Gahur, right? So, oh wow, yeah, just kind of lost it. Had the draft had the
Oh,
draft have to lift off. Back in goes like it's an Audi off, sorry, not a KTM. I'll correct myself there, but
they're very similar. I'll give you that. Okay,
from
they're
a
very
distance,
similar.
from a
I've made
distance for
that
sure.
I've made that mistake times as well. There was another car, an orange leopard spotted car that went off as well in avoidance. That's why everybody was going so slow. And yeah, here it is. It was the car that goes off, and oh, there might have been a little bit of contact there. Contact with the wall did Partez, but I'm more worried about the contact with the other KTM that did occur. But yeah, that was all in Tiergarten, and that will happen. Comes back the Constantine fact, it does happen. Right out 4 or 5 wide on the Dottinger, but when you get to that point of the racetrack, it goes back to being a single file racetrack.
That's just it. I mean, again, if you lift off going at that kind of speed, the back end just loses. You lose the back end slightly, the back end goes light. You're traveling at great speed. Yeah, it's not a place where you want to lose it. I think actually they got off fairly lightly there. They didn't do heavy contact from what I saw, but I think it was more just a trip along the grass. Jordan Daly kind of pulling out a bit of a lead now. Fastest lap of the race goes to Daly actually in the 197 Audi, pulling up a 6.2 second gap between themselves and Boardman. Verstappen 1.56 seconds behind though, so the three very much still going kind of in single file, and Verstappen not the quickest in terms of pace, but definitely keeping themselves in a range that if it something does happen up front, they've got they'll have the time to react to it and avoid any incident and make up those positions, much like the strategy you said earlier on, Jesse. So Verstappen in a really good position right now, holding on to the podium, but no doubt the big question is as well, is Lawrence going to catch these three? I mean, Lawrence seems to have the pace for it. They've carved their way through the field, but for Lawrence to get this potential podium, they will have to go through the likes of either Verstappen, Bodman, and Daly. So, what's your predictions there, Jesse?
Going to have to make up about 10 seconds is Martin Lawrence in this argument. Closer to 12 those seconds. That's 11 according to the most recent timing and scoring line. That's a big ask, but I think it is very much possible. And if these three cars stick together, if Boardman goes back up there and gives Daly a little bit of trouble, I think that's very fun for Martin Lawrence to get a podium. Think about Daly too. Daly did not start on the front row of this race. In fact, started in 4th place, immediately converted the 3rd and challenged Nordschleife 2nd. The entire Grand Prix Strecke was able to eventually, the Dottinger the last time through, take the spot away from Boardman. Boardman, to his credit, has not fallen off the back of him on the Nordschleife here. It's only on the Dottinger that Daly seems to have that extra advantage in the Audi, but that Maserati can hang with him everywhere else, and that's dangerous. And Daly dips a tire, and then all of a sudden, his entire complexion of the race changes. Bruno Teixeira with a huge slide. The only driver in the field. A couple more slides, why not? One of the only drivers in this entire field who is brave enough to break. Oh, there's the mistake. That's the mistake. Both the leaders crash. Daly off the racetrack. Boardman trying to make their way through. A hip check and Boardman into the wall. Back down to 3rd. Significant contact for Boardman, you'd have to say.
You said back down to 3rd. That's been, I don't think Boardman was ever that far down. He started the race in pole, was leading up until literally just earlier this lap when Daly found a way around on the back straight last lap. Boardman losing a lot of time there, a bit of damage. He actually made contact with the wall as well. I'm wondering if that steering is straight, but exactly what I said about Verstappen. Verstappen just sort of hanging back, just kind of waiting for that mistake to happen, and then capitalizing despite not really, having to put in the same kind of times that they were putting in before. But this is terrible news for Boardman, but it seems to be the car still has some amount of pace. They're still able to push, but how much time are they going to drop off to the likes of Daly and Verstappen?
I just think Boardman was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Daly dipped it off the racetrack. Daly doesn't have a choice. They've got to rejoin. In my opinion, Daly didn't rejoin in an unsafe manner. He left a complete other lane open there, and I just don't think Boardman had enough time to react in any considerable way. It ends up running into the back of Daly, still trying to reach control of their Audi, and almost exactly like you said, Verstappen in the right place at the right time. He's up to P2. He knows Daly has some amount of damage. Is it inconsequential? I would argue probably not around here. Verstappen has a clean car, and is now in the best position of all. It's right behind a wounded car for the lead. Pit window is open, and they will have 17 minutes or the better part of 2 laps to come in and do their mandatory stop. You'll notice there was considerable time where the cars of Olsen and Norris in the back had those stop and go 30s. Why did they hang on to them for so long? Well, ACC gives you laps to serve said penalty, and considering a lap around here is 8.5 minutes on a very average lap, that means that they could have sort of broken that up. They could have taken that probably even longer than they did, but they didn't. They both come in and serve the stop and go 30s. They're back out on the ring.
You kind of don't have a choice but to hold on to it for a little bit. Look at this, Verstappen right on Dave's gearbox. You know what? I'm going to call it. I don't think Verstappen was slower than the other two cars. You know, on terms of pace, I think they were deliberately hanging back for a moment like this because, at the end of the day, why? When you've got a 17, you know, it's a 20-minute pit window, why burn through your tires? You may as well just kind of sit back, let the tires do the thing. And Mike Jones, yeah, just a little bit of coming onto the back section here, onto the uphill, going towards Carousel. Just manages to loop it on the curb, and this is what I talked about earlier as well. We mentioned like the curbs being not kind to these GT2s, and a couple of drivers really finding it out the hard way.
At this point, Mike Jones said that he was actually enjoying the GT, unsure if he would, but in that he had been just too far off. Jones is really known for only driving GT, but his passion for wanting to race led him to signing up, and of course was today third in championship points. But it's not come off today. I'd be quite curious if he's more frustrated at the racetrack or the car here today. I would probably wait. The racetrack is not playing along. Okay, here they come. Daly and Verstappen, the leading two cars. Boardman, who theorize has got the bulk of the damage, fallen off the back a little bit. It was a second and a half. It's closer to 4 seconds. It's actually 4.3 seconds the gap now, as almost nobody coming down pit lane. Everybody going around for another circuit. The top 5 have all gone around. Martin Lawrence is speeding through, not really gained any time on Daly out in front right now, but of course with the Boardman's had, that 11-second gap is now only a 5.5-second gap for third.
Yeah, can I just say, Verstappen, Bobbin, and Lawrence, all the names all together on the leaderboard, that's something we've not seen for a while, at least in my time in the box, and usually when you see those 3 names together, you know that there's a good fight incoming. Hopefully Boardman doesn't have to damage and can at least kind of contest a little bit there, but they have dropped back another couple of seconds to Verstappen, who's out in P2 at the moment, and right now mounting the attack onto Daly. Probably again knowing that there's only 15 minutes left of that pit, well, 14 minutes left of that pit window. Bartes is making a full advantage of that, along with a couple of the other cars as well. I think that's Texiera in the Golf livery 911 ahead of them. I'm not entirely certain because it's got the weird aero body kit on. But no, Christopher Verstappen still chasing down the likes of Daly. Probably less afraid about burning through those tyres and just try to find a way out. Verstappen missing the apex. Sorry, not Verstappen. Daly missing the apex. Allows Verstappen to kind of pull up behind. Coming towards the Sabine Schmidt's curve. There we are. First corner of the Nordschleife. Squeezing up the inside. Is it going to be enough? It might just be. And Verstappen just about going side by side, but actually making the pass for the lead of the race.
Christoph Verstappen is able to do it around the outside, has to concede for a moment, but gets it done before they get to the Quiddelbacher Höhe. And this is a replay of the 508. They had an incident coming through Tiergarten and the final sort of chicane. I think that's called Kia, I think is what it's called. But anyway, they were sedentary there, and they have they've done a pit stop, but certainly a car. It is Peter Varga still sitting in the pit lane. Definitely were around at some point. Peter Varga has been disqualified. In fact, what the timing and scoring board has told us. Now, that typically only happens because there's no live stewarding today, folks. That typically only happens when a car has a like a pass-through penalty or a stop and go, and you continue to abuse track limits, and that would get you disqualified. Usually, those are looked at by stewards if there are any. Fortunately, to no avail today. So that's the end of the Monkey Racing 508. Peter Varga to be. Question from Twitch chat a little bit earlier on, and we do apologize for the delay in answering. Syntax Error has asked, will you be streaming the race tomorrow as well? Yes, will. I'm right back here on the platforms for the 12-hour of Nordschleife on RCI TV. Bring you race east, beginning hours, end hours. Of course, how much of the middle you get? Well, that's casters, what they feel like they can handle. But yes, we will live coverage of the race. Apologies, took us so long.
It's a little bit difficult from the box, especially with everything that's been going on the Nordschleife to kind of keep up with two platforms. But we do try our best. Gordon Daly still chasing down Verstappen, but more interestingly, Jesse, Boardman didn't come through the pits, so they must feel their car is, still able to hang, kind of thing. They're only 4.8 seconds behind Daly at this point. Daly possibly being slowed up by Verstappen just a little bit. I mean, Daly still has the fastest lap of the race so far. But speaking of Boardman, speaking of Laurenk earlier, that's Lawrence catching up to the back of Boardman on the ring now. So they're kind of inevitable. The thing that we thought would happen at some point, given the damage to Boardman's car, has in fact happened. And I think it'll only be a matter of time until Lawrence makes their way through Boardman. But catching down the likes of, I mean, it could happen. I mean, there's currently 4 drivers right now who immediately I could see could finish on the podium.
I think Martin Lawrence has just taken the quickest lap of the race. The RCI 171 Mercedes coming through that time, and it's little wonder they do appear to be about the quickest car on the racetrack. They are speeding up to Boardman now. This is not going to be much of a fight. Well, it depends on how Boardman feels about this. There's no real room to pass here. Looking down to the inside, does Boardman cut him a break? No, he does not. Boardman takes his normal line through there. They're still single file. Looking down, showing intent is Martin Lawrence now. Heading into Strecke and then up into Carousel. The turn signal flashing on Boardman, doesn't want to be involved there at all. He gives up the spot willingly to Martin Lawrence before they get on the carousel. Now that's an excellently orchestrated pass. Great strategic move by Boardman as well. Martin Lawrence is now on the podium.
I mean, I feel like that was only the amount of time, all things considered. I do wonder how long Boardman is going to be sat as they are potentially clearing up that damage. They've gone from kind of hanging at the front to obviously struggling since the contact, so that car is obviously wounded in some kind of way, and the replay says it's Jordan Daly, but that's I believe Partes that's Partes and Texera just having a little bit of a coming together down at the bottom end of the track there. But yeah, no, all things considered, yes, no, Boardman, I do wonder how much damage is on that car and how long they're going to be sat on the pits for. They're going to have to stop on this lap, given that there's only 8 minutes 30 of the pit window remaining. Mike Jones with a stop-go 30 as well, so again, another speeding in pits from the looks of it. I'm wondering if someone's knocked out the pit limiter boards, which can catch people out, because that's 3 stop-go penalties that we've seen in this race so far. And as you say, no live stewarding, so this is all in-game. This has all been given by the game in-game in the server.
Yeah, well, we thought that Martin Lawrence had taken the quickest lap of the race, but it disappeared off Jordan. That's what the magenta number on the most left-hand side of the screen means. The number is red. That's the car we're focused on. If it's magenta, that's the quickest lap of the race or the session. That hadn't appeared behind the stream. And look at it. It disappeared. We assumed it was on Martin Lawrence, but it wasn't. Our broadcaster told us it wasn't. And just as he had mentioned that we were incorrect, it appeared on Daly. So Daly still has the quickest lap of the race. Mike Jones in chat after it stop and sort of alluding to why they have to stop and go 30. The pit lane says the pit limiter board is gone, and that's a problem here at the Nordschleife because there's several lines, and of course, the variant, they use a different line than they're used to. Without the board, you accurately tell. Bibby has also gifted a tube membership. I'm not X. That was Rolfie Olfie, recipient of that gifted membership. Also said that's for breaking server. I don't think server. That's merely the timer. On that, Ash, appreciate the gift sub. But you know what? A new woo for you as well. Oh my goodness. What's going on here? What are we looking at? What has happened?
Just keeping up with everything because my YouTube chat is a little bit delayed. I see the uwu, but yeah. Okay.
I think he thinks he sped into pit lane and is giving up is what's going on. I think that's a frustration spin around pit lane, and indeed he's gone. Jordan Daly, your leader early in the race, I believe got caught out on pit lane by not knowing where the line was, and they have surrendered this race to Verstappen. That will promote Lawrence up to P2. Everybody that hasn't pitted will be in now. And in fact, top 8 are. That includes Brower as the silver leader, Kerrigan P2 as well, Hundehage in 3rd, and a couple other cars, Denet Kalmari and Critic. Yeah, they will have no choice. They will have to come in. My worry are for cars like Raphael Huell. There's 5 minutes on the timer. Where is 21 out on circuit? Yeah, they'll make it. They've got 5 minutes, but they have to come in this lap.
Yeah, I'm just processing everything because I'm looking at the chat.
It's a lot to process.
The chat. I see Wushel Anule in there with the whip. I can't do it anymore. My voice is going. But I see the chat. Daly. I mean, Daly had such a great start. Daly had one of the best starts I've seen. Daly had one of the best starts that I've seen in my time in the box. Like that, they just catapulted to the front. And now they're gone in the strangest of circumstances. And I mean, this kind of alludes to what Mike Jones was saying, in that the pit limiter sign has been taken down. So I wonder if that just caught them off guard, and them seeing sort of Verstappen slow down was kind of the thing that made them realize, that maybe they'd kind of overshot slightly. But I mean, still going out in heartbreaking circumstances. Boardman out on the track as well. This is the other thing I wanted to mention, Jesse. Actually, something new I wanted to bring to the mix is if you couldn't bring anything more. Boardman back out on track. It didn't seem like they took too long to repair the damage. But, I mean, they'll be happy at this point in time to see Daly gone, simply because that promotes them up to P3, back onto the podium at the very least. And coming back to what you said before the race, Jesse, whether or not you want this track to be kind of what makes or breaks your championship, if you want to sort of like bank your points on this particular round, I mean, if you're Daly right now, that's painful.
It really is. You can see on pit entry whenever that happened, what I was talking about, there's multiple painted lines. They all mean something different. The different racing series that races here. The racing series whenever DTM races here, their pit line might be different than when GT World Challenge races here versus Formula One, BLN, etc., and so forth. So all those paint are represented on pit lane because they're there in real life. But which one is yours, unless you've taken stock of that prior to the race, and a lot of drivers don't exactly know. You're into player with pit out, but pit in is sometimes a mystery, and you get caught off guard, and you can make mistakes. We've seen of that here. And also, too, consider the newest track in ACC, despite the fact that it being one of the first tracks in ACC, the pit lane is different because of the layout. So entering pit in are sort of caught unaware, and I think that's caught several people out today. Has the track caught out? Miguel Martins here. Is he going to go over the curb and bounce? Definitely going to something here. I think he is. A smooth drive from Miguel Martins there. An overtake prior. Dramas there for the number 6.
That's just it. I mean, I'm going to just calm down for just a moment because there is just so much going on. Wow. Okay. Right. Back in the room. So, bit of an update on things. Daly leaving puts Bowers back into P4. 10 seconds behind the likes of Boardman, Lawrence, and Verstappen, but considering silver class car in the midst of a sea of pros, that's really, really good news for them. Although they are being chasing down by Vossi P Tigris from the Tig Gang Racing, the 15 KTM, again within a second. So we could see some very good racing for P4, for P4 and P5. Well, Martin's 5.7 seconds back from these guys. Rebecca less than a second off of Martin's as well. So it locked in their own little battle again, up and down the field, just have these battles going on and new battles forming all the time as drivers kind of make mistakes. But I think for the most part, people are starting to find a flow. We're not seeing as many mistakes as we saw early on in the race, although it could also be due to the fact of the cars are a little bit more spaced out. It goes right on the back of Bowers as we come down to down towards the sort of like almost this is really the back section of the racetrack. I mean, I know I keep saying it's the back straight, but it's really not. This is kind of like on the opposite side of the GP circuit at this point as we're coming up the hill.
Driver's still going for it inside the top 5. Tempting or thinking about it. I'm sure Vossi's thinking, well, yeah, if I get beside Browers, they're just going to let me go, right? They're in a different class. Their lead and their class is not under any threat. But the likelihood of that is quite slim, in my opinion. Browers has a spot up here. They're going to race somebody. Certainly aren't racing anybody in their class to this point. Aware of that. If you are Browers, you can't away because you are the one that stands with the most to lose. Vossi's not really got any to lose here necessarily, but it can be for Browers if they're thinking about getting into this championship conversation, putting their name down, a title contender in our Bend. Now, up in front, in the immediate front, Christoph Estrepa is now your leader of the race, uncontested, but that may not be forever. 8.8 seconds was the gap. They entered the Nordschleife. Now, nearly halfway around the big circuit, it is 6.2 seconds. Martin Lawrence in the 171. Oh, Lord, you're coming.
That's just it. This is going to be a battle of epic proportions. Boardman spaced out a little bit, 7.5 behind, still struggling to kind of recover from that damage. And, I mean, oh, well, that's Tigris. Tigris ran wide. Caught in dirty air, potentially. I mean, you don't have the downforces we've said numerous times now. But looking at the onboard now coming in, this car is usually flat in the GT3, as I know this much. Then you flick down a couple of gears, broke a little bit late, outbroke themselves, bounced off the wall. And just to keep it pointing in a straight line, but that will be a little bit of damage and a bit of hurt pride and a loss of time to Bowers up front. Bowers also dropped 2 wheels into the grass there as well. A little puff of dust from forming in front of the 15 there. So I don't see that being too much of a hindrance, but I do wonder just how much damage is done to Boardman's car because end of the day they are still falling behind Lawrence. But I mean, they might be settling. I mean, it'd be wise to settle the question, or would you, or Jesse, or are you pushing? Are you pushing to get that time back?
If I'm Boardman, I'm not doing anything. This race could be going a lot worse. As it stands right now, it's a 12-second gap back to Browers, but that's sort of irrelevant. It's Tigris, the car behind them, that's important. The problem is that Browers and Tigris are together. So right now, Boardman is a huge fan of the silver leader, and Boardman is just trying to get the Diesel 69 car home. Third place. Daly's already exited. That sort of job done for Andy Boardman as far as the title concerned, because he's already going to gain on that. Estrepa is going to do the exact same thing. Martin Lawrence is not involved in the championship hunt. They're new to the championship as of today. But Lawrence is going for glory. Estrepa and Boardman are potentially going for a championship here on a day where Daly has had to bow out of the race. This could be huge for all of them. If you're Estrepa, I think maybe don't force it too much if Martin gets there. If you're Boardman, you don't do anything too crazy right now because you're still sitting pretty good. You're going to get at least 50-some championship points. That's a lot more than some of the other drivers.
That's just it. I mean, even if you go into the championship late, you got to start somewhere, right? And I mean, what a place to start. I mean, coming from the through from like the midfield, back of the field, to P2. I mean, capitalizing on the misfortunes of others for sure, but isn't that part of racing? And I'm not sure who holds fastest lap right now. I believe it was Daly before they disappeared, but no doubt Lawrence is up there. I mean, they've really carved their way through the field, and kind of keeping themselves there. Where is Reppen? 5.4 seconds up the road, so Lawrence still has some time to do, and the time is ticking down. I mean, Jesse, can you believe there's only 16 minutes remaining? It feels like we restarted 5 minutes ago.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of drivers that are going to be happy that this race is over. Martin Lawrence drives off the racetrack right there. I'm going to assume that was distracted driving. I don't know what he might have been distracted by in his sim rig, but he was certainly distracted by something. The only reason I assume that is because I've done the exact same thing. Look away for a split second, the road falls away, and it becomes a bit of a problem. Luckily, he was able to save it. It was 6 some seconds last interval, and at the line there, it's down to 5.4. It's going to be close. Martin Lawrence can get there. He can get to Verstappen, but the question is, catching him's one thing, passing's quite another. This is a difficult circuit to get it done, and will he catch him in time to find an advantageous place and attempt such an overtake? The question.
That's it. It's kind of crazy.
Oh man, this ain't helping.
That's a lapse of concentration if I ever saw one, and this just reminds me of the time. I remember when I first started doing commentary with RCI, we had a championship, and I believe it was George Boothby really competing up at the pointy end of the field. And I remember, I believe it was one of his family members. I think it was either his brother or his dad that was in the chat at the time, and they were basically saying, "Oh, he's deciding what music to listen to, changing tracks as he's driving, like on the podium, like leading the race, just casually." So. I know some of the, and we've had drivers in the past, I can't remember who it was, but it was the last time I was actually in the box, last season, we had one driver who was messaging the YouTube chat as they were driving, so...
Yeah, that sounds like Mike Redford, all right. Yeah, we'll
That
call
was,
him out.
yeah,
Not in the race today, but yeah, Mike Redford known to do
Redford.
that. Yeah, oh, off of the racetrack there. Was that Vossi Tigris? It was.
Distracted driving can come from many different forms, it seems, but yes, that was Vossi that was Vossi exiting the racing surface and promptly joining back onto it. It's optimal to stay on it, really. The green stuff, as pretty as it is, isn't very quick, but again, see the speed of these Mercedes, Jesse. They're just in a straight line. There's just no contest.
It's sickening, but you got to use whatever your car. You can't change what their car's doing. You've got to use whatever your car has that theirs doesn't. And I notice about a lot of these chassis, we call them chassis in America, manufacturers. A lot of the other manufacturers, they turn a bit better. They have more grip, sort of in turns. You got to use that to your advantage. That's what Tigris is doing. They're pulling away from Miguel Martins on a lot of these twistier bits, but the second the road straightened up a little bit, all of a sudden the decent motorsports car right back on him, and that continued to be the case. Back up to 6 seconds, the gap first to second. Some of Martin Lawrence excursions off of the racetrack probably have helped that a little bit. Maybe Verstappen has also turned up the wick just a little bit to keep him back there. We're gonna have to get a move on as Martin if he can catch him now. We're gonna be one to go this time by, albeit that's about 6 minutes from when we're going to get that one to go.
That's just it. Oh man, I'm still processing and catching up. It's surprising how exhausting it is, you know, trying to keep up with everything that's going on the track. I'm also looking at the minimap. There's fights happening all over the place, Jesse. This has genuinely been like one of the most fun races I've called on in a long time, and you know, it's rare that we ever have one that disappoints. So I hold this one in quite high regard, and we've still got 12 minutes of it remaining. Miguel Martin still chasing down Tigris. Tigris making a bit of a gap on the twistiest part of the circuit, but again, there's a really big power section coming up the hill right now, and that's where Martins is going to be able to make up more of that time to up to the KTM. I don't know if it's going to be enough to make a move. It's quite difficult to make a pass around to this part of the circuit, but they could put themselves into some pretty good stead to kind of keep up throughout the next twisty bit and make a move on that back straight, which is exactly the move that we saw Lawrence do to the likes of, that was Bowers and Becky earlier in the race. So they definitely have the opportunity here. Looking at the timing delta, quality, these cars are the two that are the closest together on the circuit as of right now. Lawrence losing a little bit of time to Verstappen according to the timing sheet on the left hand side of the screen, but they did make those mistakes too, which wouldn't have helped them out. So look at that. So much pace.
Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about. When the road starts to straighten up a little bit, you get this. And Miguel Martins, it's going to be, it almost looks like a defensive line, but that's kind of how you have to take that corner, going left to right, almost like a video game cheat code from back in the day. I've dated myself. I apologize. DCC Motorsports Mercedes, right back on him. Now watch in the next section, Bossy will probably gain a little bit of that time back for Gang Racing, and they will be back together again by the time they hit Dr. Hua. Well, while we have just a few moments left in the race, just a reminder that next does continue here on GT2 on Fridays. We'll be at Donington Park Friday for the finale in 2 weeks' time. Be at Spa Francorchamps, an absolute banger of a calendar if you. Of course, iRacing IMSA season continues up in Portimao this day. Tour happens weeks from May 11th. It up is all those races, all those events. You can sign up right now on .com. And do not forget the news starting this Monday. It is Jag versus B12. Pick a side. Do you like the Jaguar or do you like the 12? Join the series. It will be driver and a team championship, so to speak. Team is decided by what manufacturer. Number one this Monday from Suzuka, and we're not done this week here on RCI. A special bonus stream tomorrow, the 12-hour of Nürburgring multi-class, as it's been named. Every class is permitted. That race will be brought to you live here tomorrow as well. A lot going on these days, Austin.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I've been away from the box for a little while, but you guys have gotten busy.
Yeah, it is a very big time. Of course, if you haven't had your 12 hours here tomorrow, I'm trying to peek in my head. I'm already sitting here making up my notes tomorrow about some characteristics that we figured out here today. And the big one is unforced mistakes. We see of those today, trying to figure out in G3 machinery, or any machinery really, because all the car classes are permitted, how are all the different car classes going to deal with it, and what's multi-class traffic going to be like when a GT4 is being passed by a GT3 while dealing with a cup car, while dealing with a TCX. It's going to be madness.
Yeah, traffic is going to be bedlam. Do you know what? I'm not down for in the box for that one, but I will have to tune in because that's going to be something to watch. that's well worth tuning in for, and I'm not just saying that. That's quite exciting. I mean, if this race is anything to go by, we've already seen absolute chaos from start to finish. Jesse, again, there's only 8.5 minutes remaining, but funnily enough, unless Verstappen lets off, we could be looking at final 2 laps here, right? Because if we cross the line before time finishes, then that's another lap all the way through. So, unless Verstappen can bleed off some time, but I still think that's about a minute to bleed off. That was an 8:15 lap, so it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time to bleed off to try and make this end on this lap, but otherwise it'll be another go-around.
Ventura's Ted Edwards has had an issue putting YouTube corner. Very difficult one. How do you think? And nope, just sort of lost it there. Handling of the car. It might be that handling of that car did not look right. The new race Ventura colors on that car, but something very much amiss there. The car, it was like he crossed up the steering before he crossed up the steering. I know that doesn't make
Yeah,
sense, but
no, it does. It looked like the car had massive rear end damage. Like, if looking at the steering inputs, the back end was all over the place, almost like it had been rear ended at some point.
very that Edwards does continue. We started with 22 some odd cars. We're 20 cars that are likely to finish the race. But yeah, you're right. We may have an additional lap here. It's close. I was off by 40 seconds. Thought it was going to be pretty much done and dusted by the time they come around, get the 1 lap to go signal, but that didn't happen. And was able to get there way ahead of my timing table. I guess I missed how far into the lap they were. They might have been, yeah, they were, in fact, now that I think about it, more than 25% way into the lap. So, unless Reppin slows down and Lawrence slows down, we will have, should anyway, have 1 additional lap. 747, Reppin, we haven't seen him much today, but there he is, driving the True Racing DM.
You say we've not seen too much of him. He's not really given us anything to really kind of go off of, has he? I mean, start the race, yeah, sure, he had a bit on the back foot. He was just chilling in 3rd position, wasn't putting in any crazy times. But, you know, again, allowed himself the space that when the mistake happened, he was able to kind of make the jump and take the lead. And then from there on, he's just done what he does. He just puts in lap times. He's just kept his head down, kept himself out of trouble. And that's exactly kind of like the sort of driver we've seen for Christoph do time and time and time again. There's that kind of consistency, that kind of race smart, you know, to kind of recognize when theoretically, yeah, they've got the pace to kind of catch up, but just kind of allowing, you know, playing the long game, playing it smart. That's what a lot of the, you know, especially around here, but a lot of these longer races are all about. Martin Lawrence, again, 4.4 seconds behind with only 2 laps remaining. I'm not. I mean, my thoughts on them catching up is starting to sort of very quickly fleet away. But again, it just takes 1 mistake from Christoph, and he's not infallible. You know, he's still human. You know, as much as consistent as he's been this entire hour, that's got to be mentally draining. So we'll have to see exactly how these next 2 laps pan out for Christoph.
Yeah, this is going to be especially addition. In fact, at this point, there will be additional lap. That's going to be really bad. That gives Martin Lawrence an additional round to try and make up some of the time. Gives Christoph an additional lap to potentially make a mistake. I think Lawrence lost it, though, in my opinion, where he had a couple of off-track. They weren't anything quite tame, let's be honest, but it was enough to stop their progress, halt their progress, and in fact undo some of their progress. They were under 5.5 seconds behind Verstappen, and then after they were over seconds again. They've had to make that up. They were actually slower through the last 8 as well. It was down under 4.4 seconds and now back up to that. Maybe a particular part of the circuit that fortunes the KTM a little bit better. Martin Lawrence seems to have the bulk of his time the back half of Martin in the background. All that does is the driver cheer you on. It eggs you on a little bit. What is that old saying? Carrot in front of a pig or something.
If you can't foot the donkey, yeah, no, I know.
Oh, exactly that's the one. Yeah, I play too much Minecraft.
Yeah. No, I completely get where you're coming from. Ash Bibi in the comms chat that we have brought up a really good point actually that I want to bring up. Fuel is going to be an issue potentially. Yeah, no, entirely, and entirely it could well be. I mean, it's a long, as we said countless times before, it's a long circuit. So having that extra lap, I wonder if that is going to catch anybody out. I mean, it very much could, unless you've kind of gone through the calculations and been confident in that. As Vossi goes very wide, almost skimming them, and might actually have skimmed the wall there slightly. But yeah, no, again, especially the cars at the front. I wonder if they definitely have the fuel on board to kind of make it around another time. I mean, we're not seeing Christoph kind of lift off to make up any more time, and this is going to be, you know, a full flying lap of in race pace. But we'll have to see if any cars dart back into the pits at the end of this lap.
To hello Olivier in chat as well. I see you there. Hope you're well. Thanks for tuning in into this race that still be in doubt. You know, Ash is 100% correct. This is one of those things. They're going to have an entire extra lap that they're going to have dealt with fuel. So even if you got it a little wrong, it's going to be a big problem. You could see several cars limping around here, potentially some realizing, doing the math as they drive along, realizing that they cannot make it, and therefore they have to come down pit lane this time through. And that's it's a frustrating thing having to make a second stop, but if you've got the laps wrong, then it could be a problem. All the time they tell you in racing, whatever fuel calculation you're thinking about doing, +1 just to be safe. Problem with that around the Nordschleife is, well, how long is a +1? You want me to add an additional 6 seconds of fuel or something like that? That's an eternity on pit lane. But you try and cheat it a little bit and run a situation like this where you have an entire extra lap potentially. And we're talking about what we reckon, right, Austin? 8 additional minutes of fuel. That is not insignificant.
No, it's really not. That's when you consider that what usually like a lap is like 2.5 to 3.5 liters per lap, depending on driving style and where the location of the track actually is. Yeah, no, a track like this is mental. My estimate's going to be at least between like 6, 7, 7.5 liters per lap. And that, as you say, that's time in pit lane. That's that's time that you could potentially lose out on. But at the same time, is it really worth running the risk of the race lasting longer than you expect? Only a minute left on the clock now, and it feels like we only started. Sorry, just.
I was saying, here come the leaders too. They're coming up to the start-finish line.
You didn't even consider traffic.
Yeah, well, they are going to be about 50 seconds left on the clock. And now the question shifts from can Martin Lawrence get there to can everybody make it to the checkered flag on fuel? And that wasn't Dinak, that was Hundehage off into the dirt there in that tricky section. If you don't set this section of the racetrack appropriately through the Flansgaden, well, both Flansgadens can be a bit like that where you are forced straight line it. That's not good for your lap time, I think, is the understatement of the season. And at Kalmari right there in the middle of a silver sandwich. All these cars still yet to make it to the white flag, the last lap of the race. Oh man, predictions, Austin. Is somebody going to run out by your estimation?
I think, yeah, I don't know. Maybe towards like the midfield, bottom end of the field. I'm fairly certain the guys at the front, yes, they're fighting for podium, but I think if Lawrence and Boardman weren't able to take on another lap, I think they would have stopped, honestly, because it's better to salvage what positions you can rather than running out of fuel and not finishing at all. But at the same time, right? Like, I'm not certain. These guys, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. But we'll just have to just kind of keep watch, keep shooting, see exactly what happens, to see if anyone dives back into the pits. If we see a panic dive at the pits, then I guess we know, right?
Yeah, if they panic dive to pit lane, that means that's clear and obvious to them that they don't have a fuel. Nobody's done that thus far. Nordschleife has just entered the Nordschleife. They're off the Grand Prix Strecke now, so it is an additional lap. And no, the end of the race is not signified by when the timer hits 0. It's when the leader crosses the line. So everybody behind the leader off the lead lap, they still have to make an additional lap around this joint. And if you're just in front of the leader, like that's the 714 of Mike Jones, they're going to have to do an extra lap still because they're not even technically on the last lap of the race. They can remedy that, of course, and we do this in 24-hour racing a lot by slowing down on the Dottinger and allowing the lead lap car to come through so you don't have to do that. I think potentially Mike Jones might impact that exact thing. But for the 74 of Olsen, remember they had issues early. They're a half a lap down in comparison to the leader, so they will also still have about an additional lap. We just talked about Mike Jones, and we've gone off the race course again, but that was not on purpose to slow down. I believe they've had an incident, and they're off. That is an expensive lawnmower and an expensive repair bill.
I was gonna say, race car backwards is a race car backwards is race car, but it's it's race car upside down that's expensive. But in this case, race car backwards is also race car and expensive.
What's that called? What's that called? Palindrome, right? A palindrome?
It is a palindrome. You're correct. Um,
I paid attention in English class.
it
Thank you,
did.
teachers.
But look at that steering. Yep, Mike Jones has found a way of making the palindrome, a palindrome and expensive all
Oh,
at the same time. Uh,
oh,
okay, so
something yeah,
session's ended, but we were not just expecting another lap, but we were in another lap.
something unexpected has happened here. The race has ended prematurely, and that's going to be it, apparently. Christoph Estrepa has won the race by 2 seconds over a charging Martin Lawrence. Andy Boardman has finished in third place. Browers has won it in the silver class over Callum Kerrigan and Hundehage. Hundehage was getting ready to be challenged by Sven Kunis for that position, but that's going to be the race. It has been deemed official, apparently, and that is a puzzling end to what has been a confounding race. And I mean, they're still driving like it doesn't matter. Nobody slowed down. Nobody stopped. We've clearly seen that the race has. I have absolutely no clue as this perplexing day has continued because nobody stopped. Oh,
Nobody
wait, they
has.
have. Nope,
Wait,
several
no.
cars have stopped. Several cars
Oh.
have crossed the line and stopped, and they're
But
coming into the pit
there's
lane.
no checkered flags next to anybody's name on the left
No,
hand side
no,
of the
you're
screen. That's what I'm so
absolutely-
confused about.
You're absolutely right. Nobody has a checkered flag. At the end of all these races, the little green rectangle by the driver number.
Jesse, do we have a maximum wait time at the end? Because if the timer has if the timer is ticked down to 0 and we've kind of run through the max wait time, even if there's not a timer visible, would that account for what's just happened? If that time is ticked down to 0?
You know what? I have no idea. All I know is that despite the fact that the server has decided that the race is over, the drivers have not decided that the race is over. A couple of cars backwards, Hundehage into the wall. And this race has apparently been declared official, but the drivers have not stopped. Here's Martin Lawrence. He's not 2 seconds behind Christoph Estrepa currently. And this is going to cause quite an conversation on when this race actually ended. I would suppose, and I don't know this, but the sim has said the race is over, but that's the official end. When the sim said the race was over, for whatever reason, it has declared the race final prior to it actually being. But these drivers, Ricky Bobby style, are continuing to race it out. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of this one.
This
is Verstappen and Lawrence. I mean, Lawrence definitely did the catching up. I'm not sure if Verstappen didn't lift off. Surely we've seen it gun it this whole time. So, I mean, we're getting to the stage of the track now where the Mercedes does start to show its strength. So this could be an opportunity for Lawrence. But although, with all said and done, I'm not entirely certain what good it will do. But I mean, we may as well go for it, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what's going on here. They're going to race it out to the absolute last. The race, again, nobody has crossed the line, but the race server has decided that the race was over, despite the fact that the leader never crossed the line. This is highly unusual. You usually only see this kind of thing in the sort of arcade racers where the time's up and the race is over. And this is not something that we've ever seen out of ACP before. I'm also willing to bet this isn't something that the server configuration has caused. This might be the way the race works around here, but never mind. We are racing still with no timer, coming back to get the actual checkered flag. A couple of cars have already went out of the server, assuming that the race is over. This might be, again, this is probably just for us, for the fun of it. Martin has gotten this close, under a second, and look at this Mercedes pull. The 171 RCI eSports car pulling on the KTM all the way down the Dottinger Höhe, and this is going to be close as they crest the hill and into Tiergarten. The next couple of corners, this is going to be interesting. He falls back in line, doesn't want to be on the outside, through the Tiergarten now, and now the Nordschleife for the final couple of times, and he's backed off. Either he's backed off or he's run out of fuel, one way or another. Definitely thought about it, didn't do it, and he is going to probably follow Verstappen to the line. It is a fanciful end to
Such
what
a
is a
close.
perplexing race. And finally, some checkered flags have fallen. Verstappen, regardless now, we won't have an argument, is your winner of the race over Martin Lawrence by a tenth.
Can we just appreciate that the end of this race, according to the timing sheet that we have in front of us right now, was separated by 0.131 seconds. That's literally just a tenth of a second at the end of an hour's race around the Nordschleife. But that's crazy. Boardman coming in P3. Again, according to this timing sheet, that might be, the order might be different, considering when the race said that it was over. Um, I'm so confused, Jesse. I'm so
Well,
confused.
it won't be that confusing. Verstappen has won. Martin Lawrence is second. Boardman's three. Miguel Martins for DCC will get credited for fourth. Walter Rybecki will come home fifth. Bossy Tigers will get sixth. Bowers will win it in the silver class over Callum Kerrigan. This is the tricky part, though, Austin, because Sven Kunis was right behind Hunderhage earlier on when the race decided to end prematurely. Hunderhage had a crash. I don't know if that was off of Ben Kunis or not, or if it was a unabated incident. But Hunderhage has had a crash. They've fallen from third all the way to fourth or fifth in their class. Ben Kunis has gotten the position, but yes, results here are from the moment when the server decided the race was over. So that answers that. Officially, Hunderhage has beaten Ben Kunis for the final podium spot in silver.
Yeah, I suppose that clears up the confusion. It's just confusing as to why the race ended when it did. So that's something I think for our server admins definitely to sort of take a look at and see exactly, what can we do about this in the future. It's again, it's really weird how increasing the length of a lap, can cause weird sort of admin problems like this. I suppose when you've kind of got like end of race timers and like certain sort of timers that trigger so long after, after the clock goes 000. Yeah, I suppose strange things like this can in fact happen. Looking down the order, Daly apparently still held on to the fastest lap, so as fast as Lawrence was making their way through the field, Daly still held on to the fastest lap overall in terms of during the itself. But Verstappen winning the race overall in the 747 KTM, only by 2 seconds officially though, so it's still a very close race.
Yep, and that helps a Boardman as well. Consider it for the championship. I may have erroneously mentioned that Daly was your championship points leader. Actually, hold on. Oh yes. So yeah, prior to that, yeah, the championship points. Sorry, I got turned around in my. Verstappen is now your championship leader, and Boardman, and that actually helped Boardman. Verstappen was not the quick lap, and Daly finished solo. That has completely mixed up that championship fight and silver class. Realistically change. Now, will that be different? Will these points be different next week? We don't know. We'll have to talk it through with you before we go race at Donington Park in a week. But a strange into a strange race.
No, absolutely, Jesse, absolutely. But still, it was 2 hours. It was not 2 hours. It was an hour, but it felt like 5 minutes. Honestly, I'm just strangely tired after that. That was a lot to keep up with, but an amazingly fun race overall. And I think that this is going to be one of those tracks that I don't think it's going to come out very often, honestly, given how long it actually is. However, when it does come out, it's kind of like a special sort of event. It's going to be great.
Well, two races left to go, and I can almost guarantee, I'll give you the Jesse Lee guarantee, those will end checkered flag is shown, not on the last lap of the race. Nordschleife, some teething problems, the timers, and when the race said it's over, it's over. I have seen before, but just in sort of more sim-paid style racing, where when the timer expires, the race is over. Gran Turismo known to do something or has been known something similar as well. I believe the motorsport also does a similar when the race is over and it says it's over. But today, what a perplexing end, but what an enthralling race. Martin Lawrence almost got there, and in my opinion, would have gotten there had he not had that one lap. Those
That's a couple of little mistakes. They will add up. You know that is that unfortunately is racing. But at the same time, puts them in very good stead. He said that they joined the championship just today, and second place off of the bat. That's something to be proud of. So, having the pace to kind of run with the to run at the top. Didn't have the best qualifying session, but more than made up for it. Think in a way, if we had a driver of the day kind of thing, Lawrence is definitely in the running for it.
Yep, certainly is. Lawrence joined and almost went and took the crown. Keep in mind that car started outside the top five. Pippa, though, is your winner here today. What a race it was where they were third. They ended up second. They took first place. They ran away with it just about in front of a charging Martin Lawrence. And of course, you can't say enough about Fleet and Browers as well. They're eighth in the championship standings. And today, just out of nowhere, Austin, they were the driver to beat. And they were unrelenting by the top five of the overall field.
Yeah, no, they put being silver class and all, they put that KTM and looked like they belonged there. So definitely a very strong performance today from them too. So yeah, there's a lot to take away. There's a lot to take away from the race here.
We'll unpack all of it. We'll be back live with you next Friday for Donington Park Round 5. Yep. Hope that you will join us. If you haven't already, we'd very much like it if you like, subscribe, hit the bell, hit the follow over on Twitch. Thank you so much for all of your follows, for super chats that we've had, subscriptions. We really appreciate it. That's so humbling that you all care so much. Would be willing to do that for us. We do that. So once again, we apologize for all the technical shortcomings today on the broadcast side. Discord was playing up. The Nordschleife was playing up. No post race today because of that, because we not trust that it's even possible. Before we go out, just want to thank all of our partners at AK Esports for more information on how they can help you with sports management. AKEsports.I. Driver 61 Ace for driver coaching. They offer one-on-one coaching and on racing tools. Driver 61, get trained by the best. Fanatec to beat in direct drive sim racing hardware for all their bundles and offers. Go to fanatec.com. Go Setups is the one-stop shop for everything sim racing. You're looking to get up to speed with the Nordschleife, maybe looking to get an excellent setup for Donington for a GT2 in the week ahead. Go Setups and GoSetups.com, the place to go. They offer all sorts sports level setups and safer alternatives for everyone as well. And of course, Digital Motorsport is the one-stop shop for everything sim racing. Offer all the top equipment from brands, and they have a sim rig builder. Build the sim rig of your budget or your dreams. DigitalMotorsport.com. Austin, with all that out of the way, do you have a final thought on what we witnessed today?
Other than my brain being scrambled, I mean, I can't wait for tomorrow. As I say, I'm not in the box, but I'm going to be tuning in. I'm going to be cheering on from the sidelines because this little taster, this hour-long taster of the Nordschleife is just left me wanting even more. As tiring as it is, I wish the race was longer, but it is what it is. There's a lot to take away. There's a lot to go away and unpack. There's just amazing, Jesse.
Well, thank you so much for Stewie, our broadcaster, for being patient, working with us, troubleshooting. Ash Bibby, the very same Ted Edwards. Well, everybody in background who helped make this happen in the first place. It was a trying day, but everybody got through it. Thank you so much. And that's just me saying that to make this thing work. It's more than just Austin to me, of course, that you hear broadcast. Well, we will see next week for more continuing coverage. Sign up to Jag versus 12. That starts on Monday. Still room for you. That will also be live here RCI TV. On behalf of everybody here at the team, the broadcast, we appreciate you watching. I've been Jesse, joined by Austin and Stu. So much for watching. Until next week, have a good night.